First contact. The holographic star map aboard the Galactic Confederation flagship Eternal Dawn shimmered with countless points of light, each representing a system within their domain. Admiral Solara stood before it, six-fingered hands clasped behind her back, silvery skin reflecting the soft blue glow of the command center. For 800 years, the Confederation had maintained peace across 17,000 star systems, incorporating new species through careful diplomacy and cultural integration. Admiral, anomalous readings detected in Sector 87 Kappa. First Officer Neryl's voice remained steady, but Solara detected the subtle change in his vocal resonance that indicated concern. Something is approaching from uncharted space. Solara turned, her elongated head tilted slightly. Classification: unknown. Admiral. The propulsion signature doesn't match any recorded species. Neryl's pale green eyes narrowed as he manipulated the holographic controls. Speed exceeds conventional drive limitations. It's decelerating now. The star map shifted, focusing on the outer boundary of Confederation territory. A single red dot pulsed at the edge of their sensor range. Magnify, Solara ordered. The image zoomed in, revealing a vessel unlike any in Confederation records. Sleek and angular, its dark hull absorbed rather than reflected light, making it appear as a ship-shaped void against the stars. No visible weapon ports, yet something about its design suggested purpose, efficiency, and power. Preliminary analysis suggests technological capabilities beyond Tier 3 parameters, Science Officer Vrini reported, her delicate tendrils quivering slightly. Energy readings are inconsistent with known propulsion systems. In 8 centuries of expansion, the Confederation had always been the technological superior when encountering new civilizations. Their doctrine of peaceful incorporation had never been challenged by a species with potentially equal or greater capabilities. Initiate first contact protocols, Solara decided. Standard greeting package on all frequencies. The command deck hummed with activity as the communications team prepared the carefully crafted welcome message developed over centuries of successful first contacts, a combination of mathematical sequences, simple visual representations, and basic language patterns designed to establish peaceful intent. Message away, Admiral, Neryl confirmed. The response came faster than anyone expected. The main view screen activated without command, displaying an image that sent a ripple of surprise through the command crew. The being on screen appeared almost Solaran in basic form, bipedal, with 2 arms and a single head. But there the similarities ended. The creature's skin was a peculiar pinkish brown, its head covered with dark filaments, and its proportions stockier, more solid. Greetings, Galactic Confederation vessel Eternal Dawn. The being spoke in perfect common, the shared language of Confederation species. This is Captain Elena Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Pathfinder. We come in peace and seek dialogue. Silence fell across the command deck. The alien had addressed them by name, in their own language, before they'd even identified themselves. How do they know our ship designation? Neryl whispered. Solara stepped forward. Centuries of diplomatic training took over. Greetings, Captain Chen. I am Admiral Solara of the Galactic Confederation. We welcome peaceful contact with new species. Your knowledge of our language and vessel identity is unexpected. The human's face formed what Solara would later learn was a smile. We've been observing Confederation communications for some time before making our presence known, a precautionary measure to ensure peaceful intentions. Solara felt a chill run through her. Their most secure channels, encrypted through quantum entanglement, had apparently been compromised without detection. We request permission to send a small delegation to your vessel, Captain Chen continued, to initiate formal diplomatic relations. Solara exchanged glances with her senior staff. Protocol dictated caution, but refusing could be interpreted as hostility. We accept your request, Captain. Please limit your delegation to 3 representatives. We will prepare Docking Bay 4 for your arrival. Excellent. We'll arrive in 1 standard hour. Pathfinder out. As the screen went dark, Security Chief Varric approached. "Admiral, I strongly advise against allowing unknown entities aboard. Their technological capabilities are concerning, as is their ability to access our communications," Sylara replied. "Better to meet them under controlled conditions than risk offense. Prepare the diplomatic reception chamber. Full security protocols, but maintain a welcoming atmosphere." Docking Bay 4 gleamed under bright lights as the human shuttle approached. Smaller than expected, it moved with a precision that impressed even Varric. The craft settled onto the deck without a sound, its dark hull seeming to absorb the light around it. A delegation of Confederation officials waited, led by Admiral Sylara, and including representatives from the Diplomatic Corps and Scientific Division. Security personnel maintained a discreet presence along the perimeter. The shuttle's hatch opened without a visible seam appearing, as if the solid material simply decided to create an opening. 3 figures emerged, walking with a confidence that suggested comfort in the Confederation's standard gravity and atmosphere. The lead human, Captain Chen, Sylara presumed, stood slightly shorter than a Silaran, but moved with a fluid grace that belied the species' seemingly dense physiology. Behind her followed 2 others, a taller male with darker skin and a shorter female whose eyes constantly scanned the environment with analytical intensity. "Admiral Sylara," Captain Chen said, placing her right hand over her chest in what appeared to be a formal greeting. "Thank you for your hospitality. May I introduce Dr. Marcus Williams, our chief scientist, and Commander Sophia Reyes, my executive officer." Sylara inclined her head in the traditional Confederation greeting. "Welcome aboard the Eternal Dawn. This is First Officer Neril and Ambassador Thelos, who will assist with diplomatic proceedings." Dr. Williams stepped forward, his eyes wide with what seemed to be genuine wonder. "Your vessel's design is remarkable. The biomural integration with mechanical systems is something we've theorized, but never implemented to this degree." Ambassador Thelos's antennae twitched in surprise. The biomural architecture of Confederation vessels was not obvious from external observation, nor mentioned in any communications the humans claimed to have intercepted. "Your knowledge of our technology is impressive," Sylara observed carefully. Commander Rice smiled. "We believe in thorough research before first contact situations. It prevents misunderstandings." Something about the way she said it sent another chill through Sylara. There was no overt threat, yet the implication hung in the air. "We know more about you than you realize. Please, follow me to our reception chamber," Ambassador Thelos interjected smoothly. "We've prepared a brief cultural exchange presentation." As they walked through the corridors of the Eternal Dawn, Sylara noticed how the humans observed everything, not with the wide-eyed wonder of most newly contacted species, but with knowing glances and occasional nods of confirmation, as if verifying information they already possessed. In the reception chamber, refreshments had been arranged according to standard protocols for unknown biology. Simple compounds unlikely to cause adverse reactions. Captain Chen accepted a crystalline cup of water, studying it briefly before taking a small sip. "Filtered through your ship's living membrane systems," she commented. "Impressively pure." Ambassador Thelos began the standard welcome presentation, explaining the Confederation's history of peaceful expansion, technological sharing, and mutual defense. Captain Chen listened politely, occasionally exchanging glances with her companions. When the presentation concluded, she nodded appreciatively. "The Confederation's achievements are impressive," she said. 17,000 systems united under a single governance structure, 8 centuries without major conflict. Humanity has much to learn from your example. We look forward to learning about Earth and its people," Ambassador Thelos responded. "Our records contain no previous reference to your species. That's by design," Commander Rice said. "We've maintained a policy of observation before engagement." Dr. Williams activated a small device, which projected a holographic image of a spiral galaxy. "Earth is located here." He indicated a point in what the Confederation designated as uncharted space. We've been developing interstellar capabilities for approximately 200 of your standard years, but chose to expand cautiously. Sci-Fi's mind raced. 200 years from planetary confinement to technology that appeared to surpass Confederation standards. It had taken most species millennia to achieve such advancement. Your technological progress is unprecedented, she said carefully. Captain Chen's expression remained neutral. Necessity drives innovation, Admiral. Earth's environment required adaptability and rapid problem-solving. We are curious about your propulsion system, Neril interjected. Our sensors detected capabilities beyond conventional physics. A modified space-folding technique, Dr. Williams explained. We discovered that space-time can be manipulated more efficiently by treating it as a quantum medium rather than a relativistic one. Science Officer Fray, who had remained silent until now, leaned forward. But that would require energy levels that would destabilize conventional containment fields. Yes, Dr. Williams finished. We developed alternative approaches. The casual way he dismissed one of the Confederation's fundamental technological limitations sent a ripple of unease through the Confederation representatives. Perhaps, Sci-Fi suggested, we could discuss more concrete matters of immediate concern. Our protocols for new contact include establishing communication channels, defining territorial boundaries, and discussing potential exchange of cultural and scientific knowledge. Of course, Captain Chen agreed. However, I should inform you that the Pathfinder is merely an exploratory vessel. We've notified Earth of our successful contact. A formal diplomatic delegation is already en route. Sci-Fi exchanged glances with Neril. No signals had been detected leaving the human vessel. When might we expect this delegation? Ambassador Thelos asked. They should arrive within 3 standard days, Captain Chen replied. From Earth. Neril couldn't hide his surprise. At conventional speeds, that would place your home world within. Our communication methods aren't limited by conventional light speed restrictions, Commander Reyes explained. And our diplomatic vessels utilize more advanced propulsion than the Pathfinder. The implication hung in the air. What they were seeing was not the extent of human capabilities, but merely what humans chose to reveal. I see, Sci-Fi said carefully. Then we shall prepare for their arrival. In the meantime, perhaps you would consent to a cultural exchange. We could provide information about Confederation member species, governance structures, and common scientific knowledge. We would be delighted, Captain Chen replied. And we're prepared to share information about Earth and human culture as well. As the meeting continued, Sci-Fi found herself increasingly unsettled. The humans were unfailingly polite, seemingly open to cooperation, yet beneath every exchange lay the uncomfortable awareness that they had been observing the Confederation for an unknown period, had technology that potentially surpassed their own, and had revealed themselves only when they chose to. Later, after the humans had returned to their vessel with promises of continued dialogue, Sci-Fi called her senior staff to a secured conference room, one specifically shielded against all known forms of surveillance. Initial assessments, she asked, looking around the table. Their technology exceeds our current understanding, Vreni said immediately. The casual references to quantum manipulation of space-time suggest capabilities at least 2 centuries beyond our research projections. Their behavior indicates extensive preparation, Varak added. They've studied us thoroughly before making contact. Could they represent a threat? Sci-Fi asked directly. Neril considered the question. They've shown no hostile intent, but their capabilities concern me. No newly contacted species has ever approached us from a position of potential technological superiority. The Confederation's approach has always been to guide developing species, Ambassador Thelos noted. We may need to adapt our protocols for a species that doesn't require our guidance. Or, Varak said quietly, one that might eventually guide us. Outside, in the vast emptiness of space, the Pathfinder maintained its position near the eternal dawn. What the Confederation sensors couldn't detect was the quantum entanglement communication occurring between the human vessel and a fleet waiting just beyond their sensor range, a fleet that represented merely a fraction of humanity's true capabilities. Captain Chen stood before her own command crew, her expression serious. Initial contact successful. They're cautious but receptive. Prepare the next phase. Behind her, on a holographic display, the assessment of Confederation capabilities scrolled continuously. The words at the bottom of the screen caught the light. Approach. Diplomatic. Contingency protocols. Active. Clash of philosophies. The Grand Council chamber of the Eternal Dawn hadn't hosted an emergency session in over 70 years. Now, representatives from 12 core Confederation species gathered in the tiered circular room, their voices a low murmur of concern. Admiral Silara stood at the center platform, awaiting the arrival of High Counselor Zenith, the elected leader of the Confederation. When the massive doors parted, silence fell. High Counselor Zenith, a Phyrexian whose crystalline body structure shimmered with inner light, glided to the central podium. Behind him followed his security detail and senior advisors. Admiral, Zenith's voice resonated with harmonics that conveyed both authority and concern. Your report on the human contact has disturbed many. Elaborate on your assessment. Silara activated the chamber's holographic system, displaying the Pathfinder and all data collected thus far. The humans appeared suddenly at our borders 3 days ago. Their technology suggests capabilities beyond our current understanding, particularly in propulsion, communications, and information systems. They claim to have been studying us for some time before revealing themselves. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Most concerning, Silara continued, is that they've demonstrated knowledge of systems and information they shouldn't possess. They've penetrated our security protocols without detection. Are they hostile? Asked the Tellerate representative, their quills bristling. They show no direct aggression, Silara answered carefully. Their approach has been diplomatic, even friendly, but their capabilities suggest they could pose a significant threat if they chose to. And this diplomatic delegation they claim is coming? Zenith asked. Our long-range sensors detected a vessel entering the system approximately 1 hour ago, Silara replied. It will reach our position within the day. It's considerably larger than the Pathfinder. The holographic display shifted to show a new ship, a massive vessel of at least 3 times the size of the Eternal Dawn. Its design shared the angular, light-absorbing characteristics of the Pathfinder, but on a scale that suggested not exploration, but power. By the ancestors, whispered someone in the chamber. High Counselor Zenith's crystalline form pulsed with intensified light, a sign of heightened emotional state among Phyrexians. Recommendations, Admiral. Continue diplomatic engagement, Silara said firmly. We maintain Confederation principles of peaceful contact, but increase security protocols and alert our nearest defense fleets to stand ready. Agreed, Zenith nodded. But we must also prepare for the possibility that traditional Confederation approaches may not apply here. This is unprecedented. A first contact with a species that may surpass our technological development. As the Council continued its deliberations, on the far side of the system, the human diplomatic vessel Horizon slowed its approach. Unlike the relatively modest Pathfinder, the Horizon had been designed to impress. A statement of human capabilities wrapped in diplomatic courtesy. On its command deck, Ambassador Eliza Washington reviewed final reports. Tall and commanding, with deep brown skin and penetrating eyes that had stared down countless adversaries across negotiating tables, Washington had been chosen specifically for this mission. Captain, status report, she requested. Captain James Ikeda, a compact man with calm efficiency in every movement, turned from his station. We're maintaining reduced speed to avoid alarming the Confederation. Their defense fleet has increased activity, but remains in standard patrol configurations. The Pathfinder reports all diplomatic channels remain open. Good. Washington nodded. And our contingency force, holding position beyond the system's heliopause. undetected. Washington's expression remained neutral. Let's hope they remain unnecessary. Humanity's expansion needn't come through conflict. Will you tell them about the others? Asked Dr. Rivera, the mission's chief xenobiologist. Washington's gaze turned sharp. Not initially. The Confederation needs to adjust to our existence first, before learning what else lies beyond their borders. The arrival of the Horizon created exactly the impression Ambassador Washington had intended. Its massive form dwarfed even the Confederation flagship, its hull seeming to bend light around it in ways that defied conventional physics. When it took position alongside the Eternal Dawn, the size comparison was unavoidable, like a predator alongside potential prey. Though Washington had carefully instructed Captain Ikeda to maintain non-threatening positioning. The diplomatic reception prepared by the Confederation was impressive. Representatives from all major species, a display of cultural artifacts, and an honor guard that performed a precisely choreographed welcome ceremony. Washington led her delegation with perfect diplomatic poise, expressing appropriate appreciation while subtly establishing that humans were approaching as equals, not supplicants. High Counselor Zenith personally greeted her in the grand reception hall. Ambassador Washington, the Galactic Confederation welcomes humanity. We look forward to peaceful and productive dialogue. High Counselor, Washington bowed slightly. Earth thanks you for your welcome. We've observed the Confederation's commitment to peaceful cooperation among diverse species and hope to establish similar relations. The diplomatic pleasantries continued through the reception, but Washington noticed the underlying tension. The Confederation representatives watched the humans carefully, their questions probing for information about Earth's location, population, industrial capacity, and military capabilities. Washington answered each inquiry with practiced diplomatic skill, providing information that seemed substantive while revealing little of strategic value. Her own questions focused on Confederation governance, member species autonomy, resource allocation, and dispute resolution processes. By the time formal negotiations began the following day, Washington had confirmed what Earth's intelligence had already suggested. The Confederation, while impressive in scope, maintained stability through carefully managed technological development and cultural integration. Species that joined received protection and resources, but surrendered certain developmental pathways deemed potentially destabilizing. In the primary negotiation chamber, Washington sat opposite High Counselor Zenith and the Confederation's diplomatic chief, Ambassador Thelos. Behind them stood Admiral Sulara, whose piercing gaze rarely left the human delegation. The Confederation proposes a standard first contact treaty. Thelos began, activating a holographic document. Non-aggression, limited cultural exchange, defined territorial boundaries, and graduated technological sharing as our species become better acquainted. Washington reviewed the document carefully. This framework presupposes that humanity requires Confederation guidance and protection. Our circumstances are somewhat different from your typical first contact scenario. Different how, precisely? Admiral Sulara asked. Washington met her gaze. The Confederation typically encounters species early in their interstellar development. Humanity has been spacefaring for longer than you might assume and has already established colonies beyond our home system. How many colonies? Zenith asked directly. 17 major settlements, 42 scientific outposts, and numerous mining operations, Washington replied. Our expansion has been careful and methodical. The Confederation representatives exchanged glances. And your territorial claims? Ambassador Thelos inquired. Washington activated her own holographic display, showing a three-dimensional map of space extending well beyond the boundaries of the known Confederation territory. A significant portion was highlighted in blue. This represents space currently explored and utilized by humanity, she explained. We're not claiming exclusive rights to all of it, but these areas include our established settlements and resource operations. Admiral Sulara leaned forward. That territory extends nearly 1,000 light-years from our current border. Our records show no evidence of settlements or operations in those regions. Your records, Washington said carefully, reflect what your exploration vessels have encountered. We've maintained certain privacy protocols. You've been deliberately hiding your presence, Sci-Fi stated flatly. We've been cautious, Washington corrected. Earth's history taught us to approach potential first contact situations with preparation. High Counselor Zenith's crystalline form pulsed with rapidly changing colors. Ambassador Washington, the Confederation has existed for 8 centuries, incorporating hundreds of species peacefully. We have established protocols for a reason, to prevent misunderstandings and conflicts. We respect your history and achievements, Washington replied. But humanity must negotiate as equals, not as a developing species requiring supervision. The tension in the room thickened. Ambassador Thelos attempted to steer the conversation back to diplomatic territory. Perhaps we could discuss knowledge exchange initiatives instead. The Confederation has extensive biological, astronomical, and cultural databases we would be willing to share. We would welcome such exchanges, Washington agreed, allowing the momentary easing of tension. Earth has much to offer in return. Our medical technologies, in particular, have advanced considerably. Medical technologies. Dr. Vreni, who had joined the Confederation delegation, perked up. What specific areas? Regenerative therapies, neural interface systems, genetic stabilization, Dr. Rivera replied from the human delegation. We've largely eliminated disease among our population. Vreni's tendrils quivered with interest. The Confederation has struggled with certain cross-species pathogens. Perhaps. This is precisely why protocols exist. Admiral Silara interrupted. Unregulated technological exchange can create dependencies and unforeseen consequences. Washington raised an eyebrow. You prefer regulated technological development then? Controlling which species receive which advances. We prefer careful integration, Zenith clarified. Technology without cultural context can be destructive. On that, we agree, Washington nodded. However, humanity has noted that certain Confederation species appear to remain at relatively static technological levels for centuries. Is this by choice or policy? The question struck at the heart of the Confederation's unspoken hierarchy. Certain species, particularly founding members like the Silurians and Phyrexians, maintained technological advantages over newer members, justified as cultural readiness concerns. Before anyone could respond, an urgent signal interrupted the negotiations. Admiral Solara received a communication that caused her expression to darken immediately. High Counselor, we have an emergency situation developing in the Proxima sector. Multiple Confederation outposts report they're under attack. Zenith rose immediately. By whom? Unknown, Silara replied grimly. But the attack pattern and technology signature don't match any known species. Washington exchanged glances with her team. High Counselor, humanity has encountered aggressive entities in that region previously. We may be able to assist. You know who's attacking our outposts, Silara demanded. Not with certainty, Washington replied carefully. But we've established defensive protocols against several hostile species in regions bordering your Proxima sector. Zenith's crystalline form pulsed with rapid color changes. You speak of other interstellar species, previously unknown to us, within our exploration path. The galaxy is more populated than the Confederation has discovered, Washington said. Not all species share your peaceful approach to expansion. In that moment, the balance of the negotiation shifted. What had begun as diplomatic positioning between potential rivals suddenly faced an external context, one where the humans potentially held crucial information. We must address this crisis, Zenith declared. Ambassador Washington, if you have information that could assist us, I formally request your cooperation. Washington nodded solemnly. Of course, High Counselor. The Horizon stands ready to support Confederation efforts. With your permission, we can dispatch communications to our nearest outposts for additional intelligence. As the emergency protocols activated throughout the eternal dawn, Washington transmitted a coded message to the horizon and beyond, to the human fleet waiting silently beyond the system's edge. The message contained a single phrase: contingency proxima active. The crisis that had interrupted their negotiations was about to reveal far more about humanity's true capabilities than any diplomatic exchange could have accomplished. Part 3. Unlikely Alliance. The command center of the Eternal Dawn had transformed from a controlled diplomatic environment into a combat operations hub. Holographic displays showed multiple Confederation outposts under attack across the Proxima sector. Admiral Solara directed defense operations while High Counselor Zenith conferred with the Emergency Council. Ambassador Washington and her team had been granted access to the command center, an unprecedented move that reflected the urgency of the situation rather than established protocol. The attacks are coordinated and systematic, Solara explained, displaying tactical data. 18 outposts targeted simultaneously, communications disrupted to prevent warning signals. We've lost contact with 14 facilities already. Washington studied the attack pattern with professional detachment. Classic isolation tactics: divide defensive forces, prevent coordination. You recognize this approach? Zenith asked sharply. It's consistent with encounters we've documented, Washington confirmed. High Counselor, what you're facing is likely the Vex Collective, a machine intelligence that views organic life as inefficient and unnecessary. The Confederation leaders exchanged alarmed glances. A hostile machine intelligence. Vrani's tendrils writhed in distress. Our records contain no reference to such an entity. The Vex operate from the shadows until ready to strike, Washington explained. They observe, infiltrate communication systems, assess weaknesses, then attack with overwhelming force. They've attempted incursions into human territory 3 times in the past 40 years. And you repelled them? Admiral Solara asked, reassessing the humans with new eyes. At significant cost, yes. Washington's expression hardened. The collective adapts quickly. Conventional defensive strategies fail after initial engagement. Zenith's crystalline form pulsed with rapid color changes. Our nearest defense fleet is 6 hours from the conflict zone. By then, the outpost will be lost, Washington finished. And the Vex will have established footholds in your territory. She activated her communication device. Captain Ikeda, implement contingency proxima. Full tactical deployment. Ambassador. Solara questioned, suddenly alert. Washington met her gaze steadily. Admiral, humanity has maintained a defensive presence near your borders, partially as precaution during first contact with your Confederation, but primarily because we've been monitoring Vex activity in this region for months. You have warships near our territory. Zenith's tone carried both alarm and hope. We have the 7th Fleet within rapid response range of the Proxima sector, Washington confirmed. With your permission, they can provide immediate assistance to your outposts. The revelation hung in the air. Humanity had positioned military assets near Confederation space without detection, maintained knowledge of threats the Confederation had never encountered, and now offered assistance that revealed their true technological and military capabilities. Zenith conferred briefly with his advisors before turning back to Washington. We accept your assistance, Ambassador, but this raises significant questions about humanity's transparency. Questions we'll address fully once the immediate threat is contained, Washington promised. For now, I suggest a joint operation. Your knowledge of the territory combined with our experience fighting the Vex. Admiral Solara nodded reluctantly. Acceptable. I'll coordinate with your fleet commander. Washington's communication device projected a holographic figure, a stern-faced woman with silver hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. Admiral Helena Kane, 7th Fleet. The figure introduced herself. My forces are already moving to intercept the Vex attack groups. We can reach the nearest outposts within 20 minutes. Solara blinked in surprise. 20 minutes. That's not possible with conventional drive systems. Admiral Kane's expression remained impassive. The human defense force doesn't rely on conventional systems. Admiral Solara, I'm transmitting tactical data now. I suggest you direct any surviving outposts to implement emergency containment protocols. Isolate all networked systems immediately. The Vex's primary weapon is infiltration of digital infrastructure. As Kane's tactical data appeared on the Eternal Dawn systems, the scope of human military capability became clear. The Seventh Fleet consisted of 37 vessels of varying classifications, all utilizing technologies that the Confederation's sensors struggled to analyze fully. These readings can't be accurate, one of Solara's officers muttered. The energy outputs would require quantum fold generators, Washington explained. Similar to our FTL drives, but adapted for tactical maneuvers. Within minutes, the situation in the Proxima sector transformed. Human vessels arrived at the besieged outposts, engaging the Vex attack ships with weapons that seemed to disrupt not just their physical structure, but the underlying code that governed their operation. The command center watched in stunned silence as the tactical displays showed human forces systematically dismantling the Vex offensive. Their ships moved with impossible precision. Their weapons targeted vulnerabilities the Confederation hadn't even identified, and their defensive systems absorbed attacks that would have crippled Confederation vessels. They're not just defending, Solara observed with professional appreciation. They're executing a counter-offensive, driving the Vex back from the territory they've taken. Washington nodded. Standard protocol against the collective. Give them any foothold, and they'll convert local resources to expand their presence. Total containment is the only effective strategy. As the human fleet pushed deeper into the conflict zone, Admiral Kane's holographic figure addressed the command center again. We've secured 12 of the 18 outposts. 4 were completely overrun before our arrival. We've implemented quarantine protocols around those locations. The remaining 2 have suffered significant damage, but survivors are being evacuated. Casualties? Zenith asked. Approximately 800 Confederation personnel confirmed lost. Kane reported grimly. We're still accounting for all outpost populations. Zenith's crystalline form dimmed slightly, a sign of mourning among Phyrexians. Without your intervention, Ambassador Washington, the losses would have been total. The Confederation owes humanity a debt. Not a debt, Washington corrected gently. An opportunity for genuine alliance. The Vex Collective represents just one of several aggressive forces operating in this quadrant of the galaxy. Neither humanity nor the Confederation can afford to view each other as potential rivals when such threats exist. Admiral Solara studied the tactical displays, where human vessels continued to hunt down remaining Vex ships with ruthless efficiency. Your military capabilities exceed our analysis, she said quietly to Washington. Even our most conservative estimates. As do your diplomatic and cultural integration systems, Washington replied. Different evolutionary paths, different priorities. Humanity developed in a high-gravity, high-radiation environment with significant biodiversity and natural threats. We evolved to innovate, adapt, and when necessary, fight. And conceal your true capabilities, Solara added pointedly. Washington smiled slightly. A habit born from caution, Admiral. Earth's history includes periods where technological advantages were used for domination rather than protection. We learned to be careful about revealing our full potential until we understood others' intentions. The conversation paused as new information arrived from Admiral Kane. Confederation leadership, we've captured intact Vex command protocols from one of their vessels. The data confirms our suspicions. This attack was a preliminary incursion, testing Confederation defenses before a larger offensive. How much larger? Zenith asked. The holographic display shifted to show a massive concentration of Vex vessels assembling beyond the charted regions of space. Their main fleet, Kane explained. Approximately 300 vessels gathering at these coordinates. Based on previous patterns, they would have launched a full-scale invasion within 2 standard months. Silence fell across the command center as the Confederation leadership confronted a threat they hadn't known existed until hours ago, one that could have potentially ended their 8 centuries of peaceful existence. The Seventh Fleet has engaged their preliminary forces, Kane continued, but containing the main Vex Armada will require additional resources. I've requested reinforcements from Earth Command. How long until they arrive? Silara asked. The First and Third Fleets can reach these coordinates within 18 hours. More human ships, more revelations of capability, and reach that the Confederation had never suspected. High Counselor Zenith turned to Washington. Ambassador, the Confederation finds itself in an unprecedented position. We've encountered a threat we were unprepared for, and now depend on the assistance of a species we barely understand. Understanding can grow through cooperation, High Counselor, Washington replied. Humanity doesn't seek domination or control of Confederation space. We propose a genuine alliance, pooling our strengths rather than comparing them. Zenith considered this. The Confederation Council will need to convene to formalize any such arrangement. But in light of current circumstances, I am authorized to establish interim cooperative protocols. Silara stepped forward. I request permission to deploy our available defense fleets to support human operations against the Vex. We may not have experience with this enemy, but we will not stand idle while others defend our territory. Washington nodded with approval. Admiral Kane would welcome Confederation support. Your knowledge of local space will be invaluable in establishing containment perimeters. As the command center transformed into a joint Human Confederation Operations Center, Dr. Vrani approached Washington quietly. Ambassador, there's something I don't understand. If you knew about threats like the Vex Collective, why didn't humanity warn us when you first made contact? Washington sighed. Would you have believed us, Doctor? Or would you have seen it as a ploy? An invented threat to justify human military presence near your borders? Vrani's tendrils drooped slightly. Perhaps the latter, she admitted. Precisely. Sometimes understanding must be demonstrated rather than explained. Washington gestured toward the